There is nothing worse than untapped potential. If you know that you're made for more, this is the place. I know that every successful person I've ever met has one thing in common. They do not let themselves fall victim to their circumstances. They figure out a way to rise above it. So join me on this journey where I help you to be better, do better, and have better in life and in business. If you're feeling stuck and you're needing some practical tools, some hope to get you to that better life, this is definitely the place for you.
Podcast. I'm your host, Lachellewieme, and I get a chance to have a really amazing conversation with my friend Marcy. You guys, Marcy Cruice is somebody that I met on a summit that she led. She was gracious enough to give me a spot, and we had a chance to totally geek out on the same kind of stuff. You guys, so I hope that you guys have as much fun with this conversation as I know that we are going to have, Marcy. So welcome to the show. I'm so glad that you're here.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. It's an honor to be here.
Okay, so you are considered a transformational leadership coach, yes, which is a very fancy word for what? Tell us a little bit about what it is that you do and how you help people.
Absolutely. It is a mouthful, and it is, like many of us, right? It is one of many things that I do. But when I really think about my work, my vision, right, my place on this planet in this physical form, transformational work has been, for me, the most powerful, life-changing work that I've done. And I was raised by a psychologist. So the idea of therapy and bettering yourself and understanding yourself, that has been my whole life. And so as a transformational leadership coach, it's really I could add another word in there, which is personal leadership.
Yeah.
So we can talk about leading teams of people. I have a background there in corporate America, right? We can talk about leading our teams and leading other people, leading our communities, but all of that starts with us and our own leadership. Right. And our own sense of responsibility, our own ability and awareness to see what's in the way and work towards moving past that. So it truly is, it's a type of work, transformation, personal leadership, personal responsibility, where it doesn't matter what area of your life that you're feeling stuck or that you're feeling just not in alignment or just unsure, right? We hear it a lot. I don't know what to do. I don't know. Yes, you do. You do know.
Yeah.
And the work of transformation is to tap into the part of you that does know so that you can remember and you can move forward to live that life that is so juicy and is just calling your name and has been calling your name your whole life. So that's kind of and that looks different for everybody. How we get there, how we get to point B from point A so that we can get to point C and D and E and Z. It looks different, but it's very experiential. Right. It's not, just learning. So it's very much so about feeling the feels and diving deep and doing the work. And I facilitate that for people.
I love that so much. And those of you guys who've been listening to the Untech podcast for a while know that I'm all about better, right? Mm-hmm. To being a better version of ourselves, to becoming the best person that we can be. And it all starts with being before you can do and have, right? You have to be the person, you have to become the person that is capable and is showing up as the person that you need to be in order to do the things that you need to do for other people. So just like you said, with personal leadership, it starts with us. It starts with that awareness of where we are. It starts with that emotional intelligence of what we have to deal with and be able to read other people. It starts with having the leadership to make ourselves accountable for our own lives, right?
Yes. Yeah, 100%.
And that's one of the things that, I really was sparked to start this podcast in the first place, because I recognized, Marcy, that everything that I was reading, everything that I was listening to, all the conversations I was having with successful people really boiled down to the one thing, which is the decision to not allow themselves to become victims to their circumstances, right? They figured out a way to rise above it. And that comes from the personal responsibility, the personal leadership. We're not responsible for what happens to us, but we're responsible for what we do with it.
Yeah.
And all of that comes down to what it is that you're talking about.
100%.
Right?
And it's interesting too, because I think a lot of times people don't, without the awareness, that victimhood is so prevalent, right? And so whether you're in network marketing or you have a business coach, it's really easy to, in any aspect of our life, make the excuse or justify why our circumstances aren't better, right? My upline doesn't get me, or, my business mentor is whatever it is. And so we really get to the power to say, I am responsible. I sourced this opportunity. I sourced this person. I created my reality. And if I'm not happy with it, it is my responsibility to change it. And we all have that power. We all have that opportunity to change our reality.
Yes. And I think that when we feel like we've given away that power is when we feel really helpless and hopeless and we feel like the victim, right?
Yes.
And so certainly, again, like there's legitimate things, but you choose whether or not you want to give away that power. So I can say, well, I can scale my business, but I have to show up at work 5 days a week. And how am I going to do that when whatever? It's like, okay, well, I've chosen then to become a victim to that circumstance versus looking for solutions on what I can do.
Yes.
In the meantime, how can I outsource? How can I hire a VA? How can I work smarter, not harder? How can I maximize the time that I'm off? How can I delegate? All of the things that we can do once we take ourselves out of that victim role,
100%.
we can become the person who decides that we're going to do what it takes to make it happen, which means that we have to get creative, we have to get resourceful, we have to get other people on board perhaps, but we make the decision to own our own power and to figure it out, right?
Yeah. And I think in that decision too, right? Like if it were easy and if we knew how to do it and if we were already the person we needed to be, it would already be done. And so the part of the decision that makes it more challenging when we're making this decision to be committed, to go for it, to be responsible, is that we get to be clear on the prices that we're willing to pay in order to create that new circumstance, that new life, that new goal, because there will be hiccups. It is not easy. This work is not, is not all rainbows and butterflies. And so when you can say, I am committed to creating X, Y, and Z, and in order to do that, I'm willing to lose my TV time, lose a couple hours of sleep, be really uncomfortable for a while, whatever that price is, that way when you're paying that price, it doesn't feel like a setback. You're like, oh, I'm paying that price, and it feels like momentum. And that's where the choice, the perspective comes in, because we can say, I want to make $1 million. Amazing. And so what prices are you willing to pay to create that so that you can celebrate it when it's happening? Because that means you're moving forward and making progress.
Yeah, I totally understand. It's like when you decide that there are certain prices that you have to pay in order to get to where you want to go, and you know that ahead of time, and you've made the decision to already handle those ahead of time, then you can't be a victim to when that happens, because you're like, I already planned for this. I knew this was going to happen. I'm choosing this cost because this dream is so worth that cost, right? And so again, when we can stay out of the victim mindset and into the victor mindset and say, okay, I'm in charge of my situation. I'm in charge of my choices. I'm in charge of my attitude. Bring it on. It's worth it. Let's go. And we, there's nothing that's going to stop us, right?
Exactly. And I love what you said, that you're choosing it. You're choosing those prices. So rather than feeling defeated or feeling like a victim, to step into your power and say, nope, I chose, right? Like I feel tired today and I chose to get less sleep because I am committed to creating the thing that I said I was going to create. So it brings that awareness to it, right? Because if we go into something that we've never done before and we expect it to be easy peasy, or we're not putting thought to it, because it's also the prices you're willing to pay. You might not pay those prices and you might end up paying other prices. But when you have awareness that there will be prices that you get to pay, right? Not that you have to, but that you get to, because it's a choice. Yes. Right. Like it's so powerful when we can step into that and be 100% responsible for all the results that we're creating and everything that's happening around us.
So I want to get into your story, but first I'm just going to ask you because I don't want to accidentally forget to ask this. So what do you do, Marcy, when you just have a crappy day, right? And like, yeah, Lachelle, I know all the stuff you're saying and I know that I can choose my attitude, but today sucks. And honestly, I don't know if I want to do it anymore. Like, I know that even really, really dedicated people still have crappy days. I'm one of them, guys. So I would love to know, Marcy, like, what do you say to people who are kind of in one of those days where you're just like, I don't know if I want to pay these prices anymore. I don't know if things are happening as fast as I want them to. I don't know if it's all worth it. What do you say to those people? How do you help them through that?
That is, I was just there 2 days ago, literally woke up 2 days ago. Like, no, I don't want to have any part of this. Like, what was I thinking? And I think definitely it's, for me being able, I've created a lifestyle where I can build in some space. I can create some space to slow down and to recognize. And it's funny because no matter how many of those days I have, by the end of the day, I'm like, I really could have gotten through that faster because it's always the same thing. But when you're in that mindset, whether it is fear or worry or stress or you're tired, like whatever it is, we forget the tools, we forget the things. And because it's our ego and our brain is so strong at convincing us. It's so good. It's been doing it for so long to convince us that we're not good enough, that we don't have what it takes, that we shouldn't go do that scary thing. And, for me, what I realized and, as far as what do I do, first, I look at not what am I doing, but how am I being? And I ask myself, how am I being in this moment? And who do I get to be to honor and feel this? Because there's something in this for me. Right.
Yes.
And so immediately planting that perspective of as uncomfortable as this is, as much as I don't like feeling the way that I'm feeling, how is this a gift and what is this doing for me? Lots of journaling, meditating. I think I took 3 naps 2 days ago on this particular day. My sister said this to me once, and I will always hold on to this. She said, it's never too early to end a bad day. So go to bed early, right? Like when we sleep, we reset. Like if you follow Abraham Hicks, like when we go to sleep, we stop that energy flow and we can kind of have that reset moment. And so for me, really looking like acknowledging I'm not where I want to be. I'm not feeling the way I want to be feeling. And so we get to honor it and feel it, but also like don't spend a lot of time in there and really think about like, what is the shift? And if you're familiar with the emotional frequency scale, right? It's not like we're jumping from fear to love in a matter of moments, but what can I do to be grateful for this, whatever this is? And what it always kind of comes down to is it's my brain trying to keep me safe, trying to convince me that I'm not good enough or that I can't do it or that there's something to be scared of. And as soon as you can see and recognize, or at least just tell yourself like, hey, thank you, brain. I appreciate you trying to keep me safe, but I've got this. We're good. We're not going to die. And my personal kind of pattern, if you will, is control, trying to control the results, control the money, control the outcome. And so the pattern is I get to the point where I see that I'm trying to control something and I get to let go of that and I get to trust and I get to surrender and I get to look for the evidence that I'm on the right path and I get to trust the part of me that made that decision or put me in this position in the past, right? And so that is all transformation work. That is all work that before I got into this space, I didn't have those tools. I would have said, a few years ago, if you asked me that same question, I would have said, I sit around, I take naps, I eat my emotions, and I hope that tomorrow is better. And that worked for me for a long time. Like, cool, today sucks, and hopefully tomorrow is better. Yeah. But again, victim, right? So like you could be a victim to the way that you're feeling, or you can take some responsibility, look at it, and shift it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. So now I want to go back into really diving into your background, Marcy. I want to kind of find out when in your life you've ever felt stuck so that we can all like understand that you can relate to the rest of us, right? But first, you guys, I want to tell you all about something that my team and I have put together to help you have more connection to these amazing experts like Marcy. So I want you to hold tight. I want you to listen to all the cool things that we have for you, and then we're going to be back in just a moment.
Hey, Lachelle here, and I just got to ask you, do you ever listen to podcasts or special training from gurus who are telling you exactly what to do, but you still have questions? Wouldn't it be amazing if you actually could ask questions to the people who are presenting to give you your personalized answer to how you can get into action and apply it to your unique situation? That is exactly why I created the Better Club Elite, which is a very special, very exclusive monthly membership that gives you access to those question and answer sessions that are going to get you into action and get you all lined up with everything that you need to start being better, doing better, and having better in life and in business. The support, the answers, and everything that you need to get you into action. So let's go.
All right, girlfriend. So why don't you take us back to kind of when this journey started? Help us to understand that there's like a human being behind this amazingness that we can all relate to.
there is absolutely a human being. So, I mean, and it's funny because I'm always like, how far back do I actually go? And I think it's actually important to recognize that the life that we are living, that our subconscious minds, account for 95% of our brain activity. And so I like to joke that we're all just 8-year-olds like running around trying to figure out adulthood, because our belief system that rules us on a day-to-day basis was established by the time we were 8. And so I was raised in upper middle class America to two entrepreneurial parents. And my mom was a psychotherapist, as I mentioned. And so this idea of like self-help and understanding and talking about your emotions, right? Like that was not abnormal for me by any means. But as a kid, I was sick a lot. I had a lot of digestive issues, in and out of hospitals, surgeries. So there's a lot of contrast that at the time I didn't know, right, how connected our body and our minds were. So, right, I was getting treated. My body was being treated. My body was being paid attention to. And kind of separately, I was kind of on, but there was something missing as far as the integration between my physical and my mental, emotional, spiritual. And so, for me, so fast forward to high school years, very quickly, and I want to keep the energy high in this conversation, but this is real life, right? My best friend died on my high school graduation day. And over the next 2 years, I lost a number of friends, childhood friends, good friends, partners, and grief became my reality, to the point where it was just grief stacked on grief, stacked on grief, stacked on grief. And I then spent many, many years numb, no feeling, which I prided myself on. I had started working for Apple, which is an incredible company. I spent 14 years working for Apple, and I put all of my energy into work. It was the place where I could feel successful and normal. And I grew up, hearing that if you work hard, right, you have to work hard to make money.
Right.
You have to work hard to be successful. And so that's what I did. I worked hard because ultimately I wanted to be successful, but I prided myself, kind of the underneath all of that was me priding myself on not feeling emotion. I thought that was cool. Like I literally, for like early 20s, I was like, emotions don't faze me. I don't have emotions. Like I've got this. Ooh. And it actually, it was silly because it was just like a bunch of things kind of stacked on top of each other. And so the actual breaking point for me, when I look back, I was like, that was really nothing. But it was just the weight that was enough. And it was a breakup. It was a breakup that led me to a book that I had for a very long time sitting on the shelf by Danielle Laporte called The Desire Map, if you're familiar. And, sure enough, there was kind of this serendipitous moment where I remembered I had the book, and I, in one weekend, read The Desire Map and did that work and read Spirit Junkie by Gabrielle Bernstein. And in that weekend, what I saw was an entirely different way of existing in the world. Most of what these women were saying and how the concepts they were teaching felt so far away, like so foreign to me, like almost a new language, but there was something so intriguing about it. And that's what started my personal development journey. And that's what became this. I had been on a journey of I'd been in therapy, right? I've been in therapy for over 20 years. So I was starting to feel some emotion, and they scared the hell out of me, just completely. I would feel any emotion, whatever we call good or bad. Every emotion was frightening to me, even happy. I remember calling my mom one time and being like, I feel this feeling and I don't know what it is. It's kind of like butterflies and I feel a little. She's like, Marcy, that's called joy. You're excited. That's happiness. And I'm like, I don't like it. It's so uncomfortable. But prior to that, if I felt it, I would shut it down as opposed to getting curious about it. And so that kind of started that journey. But I have spent a really long time feeling like I don't know my place in this world. Right. I've been an entrepreneur for 12 years and I've probably had 6 different businesses. I've done a million different things.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until probably a year and a half, 2 years ago that I was able to look back and see that I kept shifting my business. Basically, every time I started to create momentum or success for myself, I would convince myself that I wasn't doing the right thing. That wasn't my purpose. And so if it's not my purpose, I shouldn't be doing it. So then I'd look for the next thing and I'd find my groove, and I've had some success. And what I was experiencing was fear and protection and coping, but I was convincing, right? This is like the power of our brain. I was convincing myself that I was doing the right thing by walking away from that business, from that success, from that momentum. And I can see it now. How did I not see it sooner of that pattern of self-sabotage, that pattern of not deserving, right? There was so much. And so kind of the concentration of this work and how I've gotten to where I am today is that a couple of years ago, this is actually during the pandemic, I get my timelines. I feel like time doesn't exist, but
I know, right?
I is it before? It was a couple of years ago, and a former partner of mine had passed away from a heroin overdose. The entire time we were in a relationship, which was about 3 years, he was recovering, and ultimately our relationship ended because his recovery journey was spotty and it was tough. And so it had been a couple of years since I talked to him when I found out that he passed away. And that sent me where I was in my life, where I was in my business, right? That experience, again, another layer of grief. Grief at this point in my life, right, is not new to me. I know grief. I know it well. But this one hit me harder than I would have expected it did, because it really wasn't honestly much of a surprise. Shocking, heartbreaking, right? Yeah. Young 30s. And one of the things that really it kind of bubbled everything up. It bubbled everything up for me about love and life and what I want and having a family and my business. And I ended up, that was right before Thanksgiving. So that year I did not work the rest of the year. And one of the things that came up for me was that I had been shifting and shifting and shifting and shifting, but I'd been a sponge. I'd been learning through all of this. Like, I'm that person who knows random things about everything that, like, I hear it all the time. People are like, I can just call you about whatever. And like, you know, and I'm like, I love that. But there's a difference between knowing things and taking action and implementing and integrating all of that. And so I came into that next year. So that would have been 2020, because I came into 2021 saying, I'm not going to do any new courses. I'm not going to sign up for any webinars. I'm going to implement all of the things that I've learned. And this is going to be my year. Literally wrote in my journal, this is my year to take action. January 14th, I see a take action challenge. And I'm like, well, I said I'm not going to sign up for anything. I'm not going to do anything. But I listened, right? Like, I listened to my intuition that said, it's free, just do it. Yeah. Tune in for a couple of days. So I went against my, like, I'm not going to sign up for anything. But that challenge led me to the work of transformation, which 100% changed everything, because it was about the responsibility. Prior to that, 20 years of therapy, which I know primed me for that work, but I did more work in 4 months than I had done in 20 years prior. The shifts, the person, I'm a different person because of that. And then I was invited to coach, and I stayed in that world and was able to see not only how it impacted me, but the ripple effect that work has. I created my 5-year goals in 4 months, which...
All because you decided to take action. That's the major catalyst.
I opened up. I said, this is where I'm going. This is my vision. The universe literally gave me a challenge. Like, I take action, like my year to take action. And the universe said, this is why I love ads. I love targeted marketing on Facebook, because it gave me an ad for some women I'd never heard of before. And the challenge was called Take Action Challenge. And I'm like, okay, I can't ignore this. I can't ignore this little nudge. And it changed everything for me.
That's amazing. And there's so much that I want to unpack in this. So what would you say? I mean, because we get like, okay, so here's the deal, you guys. Marcy and I have so much in common that I can't even begin to like tell you, even scratch the surface. But we can geek out about brain science for the next 30 minutes. We can geek out about energy and shifting that and the connection between our mind and our body. We can geek out about all things leadership and personal development. Like, I have a library of John Maxwell leadership stuff behind me. Like, I love all of these things, so I don't even know where to go. But what I would love for you to do is encourage the person right now who's listening to this, and they're listening to your story. And I think that your story is going to be the most impactful thing of all of this, because I feel like we learn so much by walking through things with other people or through other people's experiences. So what would you tell someone who's listening to this and they're like, okay, like, that's me. Like, that's me. I totally understand where you're coming from. What would you tell that person to do, to think, to consider? Like, what advice would you have?
Yeah, my guess is if you relate to my story or my energy in any way, you likely spend or have spent most of your time in your masculine energy. You're a doer. You like to figure things out, right? Like, you like to go out there and get things done. Being productive feels good for you. And I would invite you into your feminine energy. And it does not matter if you are a man or however you identify. We all have feminine, masculine energy.
And so describe that a little bit, because I don't think a lot of people understand, or that's might be a new concept for some
people. Absolutely. So my masculine energy, right? It's, I'm a Virgo, I'm type A. I love lists. I love doing. It's action, right? Our masculine energy is the doer, the action taker, the go-getter. The feminine energy is the flow and the ease and the trust and the surrender and the creativity and the fertility and all these things that really easily, if you're in the doing, right, it's the doing versus the being, really. And so if you're stuck in the doing, you're probably not paying a lot of attention to how you're being while you're doing. You have to do the do. You can't just I'm going to manifest $1 million and I'm going to kick it back and wait for that to hit my account, right? Like you get to set that attention. And part of manifestation is being open to the universe, God, spirit, your intuition, whatever it is you believe in. When you declare something, you have to then be open to how that gets to show up in your life. And if we are too heavy in our doing and in our masculine, we won't see that or listen to that or hear it. And we'll find ourselves in these cycles, in the cycle that goes, and you're like, oh, it's a pattern. So if you're noticing a pattern, and I know this is, some of this is like, yeah, but like, what do you mean? Like, and it really is, I think it starts with the awareness of where are you? Where do you want to go? And who do you get to be in order to start generating the results or changing the circumstances? Yeah. So quit with the to-do. Let's talk about our being list. How are you being? How do other people describe you? And where do we get to shift? And it's small, right? It's small steps, and it starts with the awareness. Yes, there are programs you can do that are really intense that will throw you into the fire of this work. But podcasts like this, right? Resources and people, surrounding yourself with people who've done this work, who can call you out, right? When you're in your doing. Like I had a friend yesterday who was like, you're trying to control everything. Let it go. Just let it go.
So I love this. And this is, again, like why we have so much in common, because there's a couple things that I have in the works. So you guys, I don't know when this podcast is going to air, but I have a journal that I'm working on that's going to be coming out soon. And part of the focus is, who are you being? Because it's all about who we are and who we're being in order to become. Right. And it's who we're being as we're doing, which is exactly what you love. I also have a retreat that I'm planning that is all about the becoming experience. And it's about becoming who we are. And so I truly, truly believe the same things. It's like, if we don't become her or him, if you're listening and you're a guy, if you don't become that, it's really hard for you to be able to accept or to adjust or to allow these things to transpire. So what would be your best advice to tap into that feminine energy and to allow for your intuition to speak to you? Because discernment is something that's really hard for a lot of us. We just want to do, and then we don't want to listen. So tell me what your best advice is for discernment.
For me, I think it does look different for everybody, but for me, what I had to do was I had to seek out the people that embodied that feminine goddess energy and got shit done. Because it was so easy for me to think like, well, that doesn't create results. Yes, it absolutely does. And so I had to seek those people out. Some of those people were people in my life who I knew. And some of them, right? Like, use an example, Beyonce. Right? She's got a beautiful balance of the masculine and the feminine. She is goddess energy all day long, and she knows how to get shit done. And so finding those people, ideally, maybe some celebrities, but maybe one or two people in your life that you see fully in that feminine. They're creative, they're trusting, they're okay with, being in flow. They're not trying to control everything. And they have the results that you want to have. And so having that example, being able to talk to those people, and to just be in that energy. Because at the moment, I looked around and every single person I was surrounding myself was heavy in their masculine. Heavy. That's all I had around me.
Right? Hustle for the sake of hustling until you burn out and want to give up.
Exactly.
And I think that's what I want to try to prevent people from doing. And before we wrap up, I want to give you guys a picture. If you're listening and you've ever seen the movie Finding Nemo, Marcy, I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, right? But this is the best analogy that I have for this, you guys. So there's a scene in the movie where Marlin and Dory are just swimming. They're trying to find Nemo, right? They're trying to get to Sydney. And they're swimming, and Dory's like, just keep swimming. And they're hustling, right? They're hustling to get to Sydney. that's what a lot of us do in our businesses. That's what we do in our lives is we're just hustling, we're swimming. And then we tell ourselves, just keep swimming. And we're supposed to have a smile on our face. It's all good. There's a point in the movie where they meet Crush the turtle. And in that conversation, he teaches them about how to get into the EC. And the EC is the current that literally shoots them into Sydney, like in no time flat.
The vortex. Yes.
Right. And so we have to allow ourselves to swim to the point where we can get to the EC, right? We also have to open ourselves up to the conversations like with the Crush the Turtle, who's going to be like, dude, come this way. This is a much easier, faster, way. Get into the flow. And if we don't open ourselves up, if we don't look up from our just keep swimming and open ourselves up to the faster paths, to the people who are going to help us get there, we're not going to allow ourselves to get into flow. And if we do, it's amazing how we can make it all work and how it just all just kind of comes together. And so that's what I want to encourage all of you guys to do is, keep swimming, right? Like, but you have to swim to get to that point, but you also have to be open enough to allow yourself to get into the vortex and get you to where you
exactly. Keep your head up, like keep your ears open and your eyes peeled and look for those miracles, look for those opportunities, because more times than not, how it shows up is not how you can expect it. There's no way to anticipate it. And so if you are so keen on like, I want to make I want to do $10,000 month, right? Cool. Awesome. If you're trying to plan out and be very detailed about how that $10,000 is going to come to you, you're going to cut yourself off. You're going to tell the universe, God, spirit, your intuition, that you're not open to it happening any other way, which if that's not the way it was meant to happen, you're closing the door, right? We want to get into that vortex, into the EC, right? So that we can find our flow and truly be like rapid, like, because it can happen quickly. It can happen very, very quickly if we allow it. So let it be easy.
Right. Okay. Anything else that you wanted to talk about before we wrap up this conversation? I'm just going to have you on again.
I was going to say there's like 47 things that I would love to dive into, but I think that just anybody listening to this, right? Like if you are feeling like, yeah, cool for you, or I don't even know where to start, just acknowledging that there is a place that you can go, even if it feels totally foreign. Like none of this was comfortable for me. None of this was, did I feel like I knew what I was doing? But I took the nudge and I saw it through. And so if you're feeling like, I don't know, reach out to either of us, start the conversation, right? Look for those people, search hashtag transformation, see what comes up, right? Because none of us know what we're doing, truly.
Right. And you guys know, like, my faith has brought me to this place where if I were to be on the trajectory of where I thought I was going to be career-wise, I would be a burned out, not present mom, resenting some of the things that I have on my plate, right? But instead, I was open enough and God allowed me to see a life beyond anything that I could imagine for ourselves. And it was scary, and I had to risk my comfort zone. I had to risk my reputation. I had to risk all the things that I thought I knew. But I am literally living my dream right now. And so that's what I want for all of you. And that's what Marcy wants for all of you guys. So I hope that this is an inspiration for you to just take the next step, get into action. Like she said, what do you need to implement that you haven't implemented yet? What can you do? What is your linchpin, your turning point that will change everything for you? And like she said, if you feel like you need a little accountability, somebody to hold your hand, we can be that for you. But just know that we can call BS where it is, and you likely already have the answers inside of you. You just aren't confident enough to listen.
Yep, you have everything you need inside of you.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I always do with my guests when we're wrapping up here, Marcy, is I have them ask a question to the audience, a coaching question that's going to help them to move forward from where they are to where they want to be. And I spring it on you guys because I want your intuition to tell you what your question should be. So what would you love people to consider to get them to where they want to go?
I would invite you to consider what's the excuse when you say, I want this thing, but what comes after that but? And it could be legitimate. It could be something big. It could be something logistical. But when you're like, I want to create XYZ, but, and look at what comes after that but. And know that your circumstance you have created, your results are a reflection of your intention. So we can say all day long that we want to create something, but if our subconscious mind is working against us, we're going to actually create a different result. And so until we have that awareness, and so look at what comes after that but and ask yourself, how and why did I create that? What's in that for me? And shift that from victim to responsibility, and do this with one thing and it will change. It can change your life. So look at that, shift it, ask, how is this for me? How did I create this? Reframe it.
I love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening to the Untucked podcast. I'm so grateful to be on this journey with you. And don't forget to check out the show notes if you want to get into my private club, the Better Club, to be able to learn better ways to be better, do better, and have better. So until next time, keep showing up. Let's get unstuck together. Have a great day.